We are live. Hello, Internet, and everyone else that is watching this video. Welcome to another Google Hangout for Small Empires with Alexis Ohanian. You'll notice that we did a second episode and Hangout this week, so yay, that's cool. And we have the usual Stephen Greenwood, we have Kirk, we have Alexis, and we have Michael from Vidyard. So welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining. So let's get started. Let's get right into this. Michael, talk about Vidyard and what you guys do for those that haven't seen the episode yet.
Yeah, sure. Let me know if you guys can't hear me. I think we're having some internet difficulties over here.
So
Vidyard, we're good? Cool. So Vidyard is a video analytics platform, and the category we kind of fill is within marketers who work for companies that are building videos to explain their products or technologies, to onboard customers, to sell those technologies. And then what we do is we host those videos for them. We make sure they play on all devices, mobile, desktop, whatever. And then we track how individuals view those assets and then report that data back to the organizations that created the videos. And so they get a good perspective on who's watching, for how long. They might understand that the video is poorly made because there's a huge drop-off point. They might find a few individuals that are very interested in purchasing their product or very far along the purchasing life cycle based on their attention span or how much of that video they view. And so that's kind of like the core of what we do. And there's a whole bunch of other technologies that kind of wrap into that, make it more flexible for marketers and salespeople. But that's definitely at the top of it all.
So this is some proprietary technology that you guys, created in-house.
Yep, absolutely.
And then you're able to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. So we. The way we kind of started, and I think this is touched in the film, we'll call it, is that we were a content production company. We were making videos for companies to help explain their products, and what we found was that they needed a better idea of how those videos were actually impacting the sales cycle or impacting their marketing campaigns. And so we built the technology, and it is a proprietary technology to help manage and give that data to the customer specifically, so that they could develop an ROI around what they had spent on the asset. A lot of these companies were spending $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 with us on videos, and they wanted some more information to help justify that spend. And what we ended up doing was selling our videos with a warranty, as Devin called it in the episode, which is that if 60% of your audience didn't make it to the end of the asset, we'd recreate it until that number was true. We were one of the only companies doing that in the space. So we found a lot of traction, early days. But the demand for that technology started to supersede the demand for the video production services, and so we kind of shuttered Redwoods Media and went full steam ahead on Vidyard and went to Y Combinator with that proprietary technology that we developed.
And what happened at Y Combinator?
Lots of crazy things. I mean, YC is a bit of a black box, but it's an incredible experience to spend time with people who've done it before. And I think one of the things that are lacking in every other accelerator or incubator, I don't think YC is an accelerator or incubator. I think it's an investment program. I think it's very different from every other accelerator or incubator you see, but the big difference is that there's people there who've done it before, and they're very smart people who look at the success paths of other companies and can make decisions and help you kind of frame up what your next steps are going to be based on what other companies have done and how other companies have been successful. My closest or my fondest memory from YC is obviously working with PG, who's like a human computer, and we'll look at someone's physical characteristics and try to evaluate their likelihood of success based on how much they look, act, and kind of feel like some other successful founder. It's just an incredible experience. Highly recommend it for anyone who's trying to start a company. But yeah, I would definitely do it again.
So how long has Vidyard as a company been around? And then the previous company, you said you sort of pivoted businesses. So like how long, I guess, were you guys, first, again, I haven't seen the episode yet, how long were you guys, company A, and then when did you realize that, oh, this can actually work as a full business, and then sort of transition?
Yeah, so the summer of 2010 was when we started Redwoods Media. It was my last co-op term at the University of Waterloo. The episode talks about this actually with Pearl Sullivan, who's the Dean of Engineering there. at the University of Waterloo, you do 4 months work and then 4 months co-op. So you get some really good industry experience, and then you get your standard academic experience. And so my last co-op term was that summer, and we decided that we were going to go full steam ahead on Redwoods Media. We're going to start the company, sell a bunch of videos, be successful, not have to work for the man. And so what we did was we drew a line in the sand for Christmas 2010. We called it Project Christmas, and the idea was that we would sell $50,000 of content by Christmas Eve 2010. If we couldn't hit that goal, we'd decidedly go and find some jobs while we were still in undergrad, while we still had the opportunity to. But if we did surpass that goal, we'd be full steam ahead and plan for our future around Redwoods Media. So, it was a way of kind of mitigating risk in a decision, but also leveraging the fact that we were students. We were living on ramen. We didn't need anything fancy. We didn't need a bunch of cash, and gave us a really good opportunity to kind of test the waters before we went full steam ahead. So we worked on it for that kind of 8-month period, and then we started building Vidyard in September of 2010, just as a way of getting more revenue out of our customers and also improving the content we were building. We wanted to know how people were watching it. So there was kind of a blended moment, but we started shuttering Redwoods Media about a year after we started it. So we really were only in that kind of business for a year before we realized that the bigger opportunity was with Vidyard.
And clearly the opportunity with Vidyard is greater and more successful than the other company was, which is why you closed it.
Well, you never know. That's the beauty of making decisions, right? But
Right.
I think the one thing for sure, and Alexis touched on this in the episode, is that a software business can scale much more effectively than a creative business. A creative business is relying on headcount and how good those people are. There's no committed revenue. It's not recurring. We're a SaaS business, and so every customer we close, as long as we keep them happy, as long as we satisfy them and build something they want, we should be able to keep them in perpetuity. So it's kind of like, SaaS is this beautiful thing where it takes a long time to hit $1 million in revenue. Once you hit that, you're never going to lose that $1 million in revenue. You can count on that $1 million in revenue every year. So when that becomes 10, it's the same story, and you just kind of keep building on that foundation, and it's an incredible model.
So
And,
Mike, just for people who don't know, what is SaaS?
SaaS.
Beyond
SaaS
just being, quick retorts and taking someone down.
Yeah, so SaaS stands for Software as a Service. Traditionally, like an Oracle big corporation, kind of like the Death Star in Silicon Valley, they would go into a company with a software package that they would sell them once, and then the company would pay maintenance fees and service fees and support fees. And so they would have a huge upfront sale and then a smaller, consistent sale as they went on. And then a company called Salesforce came along and said, screw that. We want to host all the data in-house and use this thing called the internet to allow you to kind of pipe into it. And so you can have your customer data and you can use the software, but you need to have access to the internet. But you're going to pay us, instead of a big upfront fee, a monthly fee to access this software. And so that's called a subscription. And so software as a service is people pay you for a subscription to your software, which is only accessible via the internet. There is no on-premise technology that people are paying for up front. And that service fee is kind of amortized over the lifetime of the customer. And you can add in a bunch of additional services like support for free, because the goal is to keep those customers happy and make sure they continuously pay you year after year after year. So hopefully that's not too complicated of an explanation, but that's what SaaS is for us today.
Hey, Michael, so is the secret? I'm sorry. Can I?
Go ahead, Alexis.
Okay. Is the secret officially out about Waterloo? And because that was a big thing for me. One of the reasons I really wanted to do this episode here was because I've known for a while about it, just because obviously all the stuff I'm doing in tech. But I feel like it's just now at a point where everyone who kind of knows what they're doing as tech people know about Waterloo. But even I was sleeping on it like 3 or 4 years ago when I first sort of learned about it. What do you think? Like, why does it? And this is something we touched upon, but like, can you just give me the TLDR on Waterloo and why this is such a big fucking deal?
Yeah, I can kind of break it down really quickly. I think, first and foremost, it has a really good undergraduate program for engineers and for CSers, computer scientists. because it gives you 2.5 years of work experience before you graduate. And so if you're thinking of hiring a new grad, you're probably going to opt for the one that has experience in industry, because you're going to need to train them on less with respect to acting in the corporate world than you would a new grad who's never worked a job before, right? Who's never done the 9 to 5. So there's that one component for sure. The other side of Waterloo, and what makes it so fantastic, and why you see a lot of companies like Square, for instance, opening offices here, is because the Canadian government subsidizes research and development costs. And so it actually works out to about 75% of what you pay for an engineer comes back to you at year end in cash from the government, because they're devoted to research and development. And that's to bolster the economy, that's to bolster the R&D sector. You know, it's to mitigate the brain drain of people leaving Canada and going elsewhere to work. But so what you see is companies coming up here and locating offices. So those two things make it a great place to start a company. But I think the academic institution, and you guys had a great chance to chat with Pearl, is really the secret sauce behind, you know, why it's such a good community, and why the school is so efficient at developing great engineers and great talent for tech companies.
So, Michael, what do you do for
a tech company in New York, or in Los Angeles, or San Francisco, where 75% of your costs go to like sweet food and yoga classes?
Sorry, I missed the first part of that.
It's like the opposite of starting a company in America, where 75% of your costs go to yoga classes and awesome food.
Yeah. Well, you know, but there's one drawback. I showed you guys this earlier, but we've got like it is clearly Canada here. About 5 inches of 5 inches of fresh snow, so you got to be willing to deal with that.
Hashtag Canada.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's true. I mean, so we benchmarked ourselves against some of our fellow cohort companies coming out of YC, and our cost per engineer is literally less than a third of what it would have been in Silicon Valley. And then when you start factoring in retention and the difficulties around retaining the talent you hire, because there's so many opportunities, there's so many bonuses floating around for recruiting, you know, it just becomes, you know, on the weighted scale, a much easier place to hire, benchmark, train, and scale an engineering team. And obviously there's going to be fallbacks, because, you know, when it comes to SaaS particularly, and SaaS sales talent, you know, there's not a ton of it around, but it's still so new that it can be trained and learned, and you're not going to be far behind, you know, other organizations. And with that said, we've been able to import all the talent we need on that side of the fence so far.
Michael, how many people is Vidyard right now?
It's a good question, actually. I think we're somewhere between 40 and 50. I think we're 44. But we've got 12 open recs. So, you know, as we fill those 12 jobs, we'll be, you know, 44 plus 12, obviously 56. But I imagine that will double in size over the next year or so. And we've just actually purchased new space. You guys saw it during the episode, but we were in about 7,000 square feet, and we just got another 8. So we're doubling the size of the office, and we imagine we can fit about 130 people across those 2 floors. And so that'll be the goal for next year. And we only hire as we need, folks. We're not, you know, into aggressively hiring to prove a big head count, but there definitely is the need.
So fun fact behind the scenes here, we actually had to turn some contractors away because they were building out their new space while we were filming the episode.
Yeah.
I felt really bad. These 2 dudes showed up like on the weekend when we were filming, and we were like, "Oh, you want to come in here with a drill and a saw?" I don't know.
Yeah, so because we're expanding between the 2 floors, and obviously people are working, it's tough to figure out when to bring contractors in, because you don't want to disturb everybody's day. So it's evenings and weekends, and we're actually cutting a hole in the floor to move in a staircase, and it's like this orchestration of individuals, initiatives. They're going to come in and do the support structure, and then on the weekend they're just going to cut the hole. So everybody will come in on Monday. There's going to be a big hole in the floor that hopefully people don't fall through. But you know, it's a balance, and it's kind of the growing pains are fun. But yeah, it's those things that you guys saw being built are now done, which is nice. And yeah, we're getting there.
Is the go-kart track reinstated?
Yes, yeah, the go-kart track is good. And actually, I don't know if you guys have seen those new go-karts. They made like an adult version of them where the rear wheels, you can pull a lever. It looks like a handbrake, but it actually drops these casters, so you can drift these carts. So we've got 3 of those coming. Because this is like a wicked drift place. Because there's like some sections in the office where, if you could like Tokyo drift it, you know, like completely sideways, it would feel pretty cool. So
you legitimately ride in the office?
Yeah. Yeah. So we got these.
Unfortunately, we couldn't film it while we were there.
Yeah, they were all. You got to charge those things up.
Well, they're all broken. They get used pretty hard. So one of them has now been upgraded to a 1,000-watt motor from a 500. That thing will light up the rear wheels. And the other one is, you know, they're very different. One understeers, one oversteers. You know, we kind of got a bit of a car culture here, so everybody loves those things.
It's like all the different Mario Kart players, right?
Yeah.
Like you go the extra miles to Donkey Kong, but you know you're going to get worse handling.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, one is faster in a straight line, but the other one can turn sharper. So, you know, depending on the track configuration, one is definitely going to throw down a faster lap time.
So it's like playing with Peach or Bowser in Mario Kart.
Yep. And then every once in a while, you still do get a banana peel.
Very good.
Michael, so I don't think we talked about what you actually do for the company. Like, what's your role and position there?
That's a good question. It's changed so much since we started. Officially, I'm the CEO. And so what that means is I focus on 3 things primarily. The first is innovation. Devin and I both believe that we're not a company that's going to hire a bunch of product managers. I think we're the best people for the job when it comes to deciding what technology we're going to build next. I think you see a lot of Y Combinator companies that are structured like that. We've been closest to it for the longest. We believe in the YC mantra of building something people want. And so because we came from that, I think we're the best people for it. And so I focus a ton on what we're building next, what's out there in the world, what our customers need. I have daily customer conversations and interactions. I'm very involved in the sales cycle because it's a great way of understanding what we need to build next. So that's part 1. Part 2 is people related. Obviously, we want to hire the best possible people to make sure that we can be innovative. And so I probably spend 30 to 40% of my time recruiting. And then the last one, and the least important, but obviously still very important, is do we have enough money to hire the best people to be as innovative as possible? So it's very recursive. And so, you know, keep an eye on the bank account. Are we growing the business? Are we at a place where we could go raise subsequent rounds of financing? All those things are very important to me, and they're the things that I lose sleep over, you know, some nights, but they're also the things that get me up in the morning and bring me to the office. So, you know, there's lots of stuff that kind of falls under those 3 umbrellas, and it's always changing. Right now, I am the active sales manager, but, you know, we're actively recruiting a VP of sales or a director of sales. You know, if you're out there listening and have SaaS sales experience, come on down. And then once we
reach out?
Yeah, once we where should they reach out?
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I mean, Twitter. My Twitter handle is Michael Litt, or you can email me directly, michael@vidyard.com. Yeah, so those are kind of the 3 things we look at. The way Devin and I kind of tackle the brunt of difficult things in the business is we look at it like it's a big dam that has a bunch of leaks in it, and then, you know, one of us takes a finger, whoever has the best finger for the job, and we put our finger in the dam or in the hole, and then the other person kind of goes out and finds somebody else to put their finger in the hole, and then we hire that person in. And
the Dutch style of business. Then.
Yeah, exactly. And we find somebody with a much better finger, and then they put their finger in the hole, and then we go on and find the next hole to work on. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that as CEO, you're so hands-on with the whole company. You know, some CEOs, you know, of like huge telecom companies, for example, probably don't make sales calls. You know, and I mean, obviously your company's way smaller, but it's just interesting to hear that you sort of have like your hands involved in all the processes, and you feel like you're doing the jobs that you're best at. You know, even as CEO, you will still get on the phone and deal with customers. It's interesting to hear that, you know, that exists.
Oh yeah, you know, I think the best businesses that we've seen are still led by founder CEOs, right? Like Mark Benioff, Larry Ellison, to look at B2B companies, but you know, look at Google, look at Facebook. Founder CEOs, there's something special about them, and I think it's because they, you know, they gave birth to the company. It's their baby, and they know it best.
Awesome.
So we got a really interesting look at Waterloo and Kitchener in general during that time, because it was there was a lot going on. There's a great tech conference called Techtoberfest.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel really lucky because we got to see a really vibrant moment in the community's, you know, existence. Right? And can you just describe like what the startup culture in Waterloo is like, and maybe, you know, shout out a couple of the other companies that are pushing the boundaries out there?
Absolutely. So culturally, this is where I get into trouble because I don't mention one or two that are really great. We get shit, but I swear. But no, so culturally, Waterloo is a fairly small community, and there's not a lot of distractions. So when people start companies, like they really start companies. And you don't see a lot of people hanging out at coffee shops just like continuously talking about how they're going to start a company. And so like you walk into a coffee shop in Palo Alto or San Francisco these days, it's full of people that are pitching ideas and like talking about how they're going to quit their job and start a company. And around here, like people actually do it, and I'm sure that will change. But it's very dedicated to success. You know, it's interesting because there's one element to the startup culture here that does not exist in the States that I've seen so far, and that's like the government. The government here recognizes that. Actually, this is a huge, crazy story. I'll try to give you a really quick summary. But Canada tried to get into tech in like the year 2000, and they were too late, and a bunch of analysts at banks got into it, and then the bottom fell out of the market, dot-com bubble burst. And so all the people that were investing in tech started investing back in commodities, right? Oil and gas, which is Canada's big export to the U.S. And so there was never really an expertise built around tech. And so if you look at the index of publicly traded Canadian tech companies, it's like 1 or 2%. In the U.S., it's like 20%. And so the government is like, we need to get better at tech. And so we're going to put a bunch of money into these facilities like Communitech, where you guys saw the keg tapping, to help them bolster companies and help them, you know, develop companies. The problem is it really takes people who developed companies before to develop companies. It's not really the place of the government. But, you know, it also takes money to develop companies. And so if it's allocated in the right way, companies can succeed. And we've benefited a ton from the government's involvement. There's actually a clause that states that they will only pay up to 75% of your operating expenses in grants, bursaries, cash allocation, etc. And so, you know, our goal is 74.8%, which is fantastic, and it really helps the companies that are going succeed, and it helps the money they raise from a venture perspective go further. So that's kind of the way the culture has evolved, and it's definitely much more serious in some extent. But you know, we also like to have a lot of fun and drink beer and call that a tech event. Which is cool.
Can you remind us what Canada's immigration policy is like, and can we move there ASAP?
Yeah, you can. Like I was driving up the 101 from Palo Alto to San Francisco, and there was a billboard that was very un-Canadian that was like, move to Canada for the startup visa. And if you start a company in Canada, if you register a business, you can immigrate here. And that's basically it.
Really?
Yeah. It's really easy to do. It's really lax, and I know that it's something that the U.S. is working on, but we do have kind of a large immigrant startup culture as well, because there's a number of people that have come up here from the States now, and from Europe. There's, you know, a number of people that come from Asia. You know, it's a good opportunity because there's a lot of international students at the University of Waterloo that will then start companies here because they might be here on a student visa, but then they can quickly switch to a startup visa once they graduate. There's lots of cool things going on. So that's kind of what the culture is. I mean, big companies doing interesting things here. You guys might have recently saw that Kik raised a large round of financing. You know, they're one of the biggest messaging platforms in the first world. That's a very competitive race, but that's, you know, locally born and bred. Obviously, BlackBerry, you know, invented the mobile internet. Can't deny that. It's pretty cool to have that expertise up the street. You know, despite the fact the direction that things have gone. There's a big company here called Desire to Learn. Rumored that more than $100 million in revenue. Will be IPOing relatively quickly. And then in the startup ecosystem, I mean, there's guys like Pinpoint. There's Tinkercoin doing some really cool things in the Bitcoin world. There's a company called Mapped In doing internal mapping resources. I mean, I could go on and on and on because I think there's like 1,000 active startups here. Personally, I've invested in 8 or 9 of them, and I tried to cover most of them in that portfolio. Atomic Labs, can't forget about those guys. I mean, reinventing human-computer interaction in our backyard. So it is cool, and it's moving fast. And my peer group is startup founders, and I believe your closest 5 should be the most innovative 5. So try to keep a tight circle. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. That was super duper informative.
Yeah, sorry, I went on like a bit of a rant.
No, it's great.
I'm happy you talked about it.
Yeah. That's cool, everyone. We should wrap up. I know, Steven, you said you guys have to hop to it.
Yeah,
so
we are still shooting for everybody.
More episodes of Small Empires. Cool.
We're working for you.
So thanks everyone for watching, and thanks to you fine gentlemen for joining this hangout. And for those watching, if you haven't seen the episode, it's on theverge.com. It's on youtube.com/theverge. Search for Small Empires. Thanks, Michael, for joining us. You guys know who Alexis is, and Kirk and Steven, thanks for talking to us as always. And I think we'll be back, maybe not the next week, but the week after, but I'll tweet it with the Verge account, and we'll put out some periodic updates. So again, thanks for watching, and go check out the episode.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.